Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller walked into the studio that day as Elvis Presley's bosses. They were the songwriters. He was the singer. That's how it worked. They created. He performed. But by the end of that session, something had shifted. Elvis had shown them a song he'd been working on, expecting feedback, maybe encouragement. What he got instead was silence, then tears, then Mike Stoller saying something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "We've been writing for 10 years, and we've never written anything this good." The question was what to do with a song that proved Elvis Presley didn't need them as much as they needed him. Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller were the hottest songwriting team in rock and roll in 1957. They had written Hound Dog for Big Mama Thornton before Elvis covered it. They had written Jailhouse Rock specifically for Elvis's movie. They were the architects of Elvis's sound. Or at least that's how they saw it. In their minds, and in the minds of most people in the music industry, Elvis was the delivery system for their genius. He was the handsome voice that took their words and melodies to the masses. Elvis knew this perception existed. He'd heard the whispers, read the articles that called him a great interpreter, but never a creator. It bothered him more than he let on because Elvis had been writing songs since he was a teenager. Nothing fancy, nothing he snorts thought was good enough to record, but he wrote late at night in hotel rooms, early in the morning before anyone else was awake, during long drives between shows. He wrote because he needed to, because sometimes the feelings inside him couldn't be expressed by singing someone else's words. The session on May 3, 1957 was supposed to be routine. Leiber and Stoller had come to Nashville where Elvis was recording at RCA Studio B. They'd brought 3 new songs for Elvis to consider for his next single. The plan was simple. Play the songs. Elvis picks one. They recorded. Everyone goes home happy and richer. But when Leiber and Stoller arrived, Elvis seemed distracted. He was polite as always, shook their hands, thanked them for coming. But there was something on his mind. They ran through the 3 songs they had brought. Elvis sang them competently, hitting all the notes, giving them the Elvis treatment. But his heart wasn't in it. Anyone could hear that. "What's wrong?" Jerry finally asked, his New York directness cutting through the Southern politeness. "These songs not working for you?" Elvis sat down on a stool holding his guitar. "The songs are great. They're always great. You guys are the best at what you do." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I was just wondering if maybe I could play you something I've been working on." Jerry and Mike exchanged a look. This was new. In all their time working with Elvis, he'd never suggested his own material. "Sure," Mike said, curious, but not expecting much. "Let's hear it." Elvis adjusted his guitar, took a breath, and started to play. The song was called When the Night Falls Down. The melody was simple but haunting, built around a chord progression that felt familiar, but somehow new. And then Elvis started to sing. And the words he sang weren't the usual rock and roll fare about cars and girls and dancing. He sang about loneliness, but not the fun romanticized kind. The real kind, the kind that comes from being surrounded by thousands of people and still feeling completely alone. He sang about success that feels empty, about missing a version of yourself you'll never get back to, about the weight of expectations and the fear of failure. It was personal, raw, honest in a way that rock and roll songs in 1957 just weren't. The musicians in the studio had been tuning instruments, making small talk, doing the usual things musicians do during breaks. But as Elvis sang, everything stopped. One by one, they turned to listen. By the time Elvis got to the bridge, the room was completely silent except for his voice and guitar. Leiber and Stoller sat frozen. They'd spent a decade crafting songs, studying the art of songwriting, learning what worked and what didn't. They understood structure. They understood hooks. They understood how to write something that was both commercial and meaningful. And what they were hearing from Elvis Presley was a masterclass in all of it. The bridge was particularly devastating. Elvis sang about his mother, though he never said her name. He sang about promises he'd made to her, about trying to stay true to who he was while the whole world wanted him to be something else. Gladys had died the year before, and the pain in Elvis's voice was real, unfiltered, the kind of authentic emotion that songwriters spend careers trying to capture. When Elvis finished, he looked up at Leiber and Stoller nervously. He'd just shown them something incredibly personal, something he'd never shown anyone. He waited for their feedback, their criticism, their suggestions for how to make it better. Neither man spoke. Mike Stoller's eyes were wet. He turned away, pretending to adjust his glasses, but everyone could see he was crying. Jerry Leiber just sat there staring at Elvis, his usually sharp, quick mind trying to process what he just heard. Well, Elvis asked after the silence had stretched too long. What do you think? I know it's not your style, and maybe it's not commercial enough for a single, but stop, Jerry interrupted, his voice rough. He stood up and walked closer to Elvis. Just stop talking for a second. Elvis fell silent, worried he'd offended them somehow, that maybe the song was terrible, and they were trying to figure out how to tell him gently. Jerry looked at Mike, then back at Elvis. When he spoke, his voice cracked slightly. We've been writing songs for 10 years. We've had hits. We've made money. People call us the best songwriters in rock and roll. He paused. We've never written anything as good as what you just played. Elvis blinked, not sure he'd heard correctly. What? Mike stood up, composing himself. He's right. That song, Elvis, it's extraordinary. The melody, the lyrics, the emotional honesty. It's everything we try to do when we write, but you did it effortlessly. How long did this take you to write? Elvis shrugged, embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe a week. I'd work on it at night. Change a line here or there. A week. Jerry repeated, shaking his head. Mike and I spent 3 months on Jailhouse Rock. 3 months to get it right. You wrote something better in a week. One of the session musicians, Scotty Moore, who'd been with Elvis from the beginning, spoke up. Elvis has been writing songs for years. He just never plays them for anyone. Jerry turned to Scotty. Are you telling me he has more songs like this? Probably, Scotty said. He's always scribbling in notebooks, playing guitar late at night. I've heard bits and pieces. It's all good stuff. Jerry looked at Elvis with a mixture of respect and something else. Regret, maybe, or embarrassment. He'd been dismissive of Elvis as an artist, seeing him only as a performer. And now he was realizing how wrong he'd been. Why haven't you recorded any of your own songs? Mike asked. Elvis set his guitar down. Because the Colonel says it's not smart business. He says people want to hear Elvis Presley sing hit songs, not Elvis Presley, the songwriter. He says if I write my own material, I can't have the best songwriters in the business writing for me. He looked at Jerry and Mike. Guys like you. The Colonel's an idiot. Jerry said bluntly. Then realizing how that sounded, he added. I mean, he's brilliant at managing your career, but he's wrong about this. Dead wrong. Mike was pacing now, his mind working. If Elvis writes his own material, he doesn't need to split publishing. He controls everything creatively and financially, which is probably exactly why the Colonel doesn't want me to do it. Elvis said, he makes money off the publishing deals. If I'm writing my own songs, that changes the business arrangement. Jerry sat back down, running his hands through his hair. This was complicated. On one level, he was genuinely impressed, moved even by Elvis's talent. On another level, he was realizing that his and Mike's lucrative relationship with Elvis might be threatened if Elvis started writing his own hits. Mike seemed to be thinking the same thing, but to his credit, he spoke honestly. Elvis, you're a real songwriter, not someone who dabbles, not someone who writes a few lines and calls it a song. You're the real thing. That song you just played is better than anything on the radio right now. So, what do I do with it? Elvis asked. Snorts. The Colonel will never let me record it under my name. He's already got the next 3 singles picked out, all from outside writers. Jerry and Mike looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that people who've worked together for years can have. Finally, Jerry spoke. What if we said we wrote it? Elvis looked confused. What? What if Mike and I take credit for writing when the night falls down? Jerry explained. The Colonel can't object to that. It's a Leiber and Stoller song, just like Jailhouse Rock and all the others. We record it, release it, and nobody needs to know the truth. But that's lying, Elvis said. You didn't write it. Why would you do that? Mike answered. Because that song deserves to be heard, because you deserve to have people hear what you can do, even if they don't know it's you who did it. And honestly, because having our names on a song that good won't hurt our reputation. What about the money? Elvis asked. The publishing, the royalties, all of that. We split it, Jerry said. 3 ways. We'll register the song with you as a co-writer. Even if publicly we take the credit, you'll get your share. Elvis shook his head. That doesn't seem right. I wrote it. You shouldn't have to share the money or the credit. Look, Mike said, sitting down next to Elvis, Jerry and I have been lucky. We've been successful. But we got into this business because we love music. Because we love when a great song connects with people. What you wrote, it deserves that chance. If the only way to make it happen is to bend the truth a little, then that's what we do. Elvis looked at them both, trying to understand why they'd be willing to do this. You really think it's that good? It's better than good, Jerry said. It's the kind of song that could change what people think rock and roll can be. It's got depth, real emotion. It's not just 3 chords and a catchy chorus. It's art. They spent the rest of the session working on When the Night Falls Down. Jerry and Mike, despite claiming they hadn't written it, had suggestions for arrangement, for where the harmonies should come in, for how the instrumentation should build. Elvis listened, appreciated the input, made changes when they made sense. By the end of the day, they had a recording that everyone in the studio knew was special. It was different from anything Elvis had released before. It was more mature, more introspective, more vulnerable. It was a risk. As they were packing up, Elvis pulled Jerry and Mike aside. I need you to understand something. I'm grateful for what you're doing, for giving this song a chance, but I need you to promise me something. What? Mike asked. Someday, when the time is right, when the Colonel's not controlling,